Hey everyone, this is Shadowman. I escaped my captivity. I was pursued on foot, chased by dogs, stole a truck, and was almost apprehended by the federal authorities when I finally boarded this plane, and I'm now heading back home. So I want to use the time of this flight to tell you some new information which I gathered. But first I want to do a short summary of some of the crazy claims that Jason ever made, and the amount of lies which he told and has been exposed. And then I will show you some new information which is also suspected for being lies. He claimed that he doesn't have a criminal record, not even a ticket, and he was caught with an unlicensed handgun on him. So he definitely does have a criminal record. That's where that mugshot is from. Also, he made grandiose statements about his family members. He claimed that he had family who were survivors of Pearl Harbor, and people looked into that and couldn't find any relatives of Blaha. After that, he quickly deleted that video after he realized he's been exposed for lying. He also said that he was a male model and a shredded bodybuilder, and said that all the evidence of that was destroyed in a file. He actually said that in a comment. He also often claimed to have 2 black belts, but always refused to elaborate or to demonstrate his skills. And when pushed about it, he just says he doesn't want to talk about it as not to give his potential adversaries an advantage. So he thinks his audience is so stupid that they will buy these bullshit excuses, and always makes up new lies to cover up his older lies. There were many videos exposing him simply by showing him contradicting himself. One part of one video, and then another part from another video, and this alone completely exposed him as a liar, because he completely contradicted himself by his own statements. There was no need to even comment on it. Just by showing 2 separate clips of him, you can easily expose him as a liar because he contradicts himself. For example, he claimed to be obese until after high school, and he couldn't even run 100 yards. And later he claimed that he was recruited to the CIA straight out of high school because of his shooting skills. But who would recruit an obese person who can't even run? Who would recruit such a person to be an agent? So this is one example of a contradiction from his own mouth. When so many videos exposing him were on YouTube, he tried to take them down with DMCA complaints, which failed because people appealed it and got the videos back. But they were down for a few weeks, and during that time he was bragging about it and saying that the FBI was behind taking them down. He said he went to the FBI, but all the people who appealed it got their videos back, so it is obvious it was just a DMCA complaint. Once it became obvious that Jason Blaha is a liar, people started looking back at some of the older videos and some of the older comments he made, and exposed many other lies from his past. For example, he claimed that he wrote research papers for students and for professors, claimed that he has a genius level IQ, and yet, as I showed in some of my videos, he constantly makes spelling errors. He can't even spell simple words, and we're supposed to believe that's the guy who wrote for professors. He can't even spell basic English words. Also, that police report which I mentioned, and the judge actually wondered about his education level and intelligence level and sent him to do a few tests, and those tests revealed that he had the intelligence of a 6th grader. This was when he was 22, and he claims to have a genius level IQ now. He also claimed that he ran his own steroid lab, and that he slept with cheerleaders in high school, and all kinds of crazy claims like that. And remember, he was obese in high school. He said that he helped people pass drug tests and to get to the NFL. All kinds of grandiose statements like that. The timeline of his claims doesn't fit each other. It's completely contradictory. His father denied his claims to being a mercenary. He said he was in manual labor. His ex-wife also talked about him and said he never killed anyone. He never did any of the crazy stuff he claims he did. So actual veterans, actual soldiers, took notice of all his bizarre claims, and there was actually an article published about him on a website called Popular Military. There was an article which linked all those videos exposing him, and he made a video replying to the veterans, basically telling them to go fuck themselves, saying that he never claimed to be a military, so it's not stolen valor, because he only claimed to be a mercenary. But then they said you couldn't have been a mercenary if you weren't a soldier before that, because they only take veterans to be mercenaries. And he made a video about the Clinton years and claiming that there were no veterans during that time, and so that's why they recruited non-veterans to be mercenaries. Because he claimed that the US wasn't involved in any war after Vietnam, and so any veterans weren't too old now, and so on. So people quickly made response videos showing him how many veterans there were, because the US was actually involved in many conflicts after Vietnam, such as the Gulf War and many other conflicts. So there were hundreds of thousands of veterans who could be recruited to be mercenaries. So his claim is just stupid. So after this, a website called Popular Military actually published an article about Jason Blaha. This was after he made a video basically telling veterans to go fuck themselves and saying he will shoot them if any of them come at him with negative body language. So he actually threatened to kill veterans for exposing his lies. So after the Popular Military article was published, Jason made his biggest mistake ever. He got his friend Jay Porker to film a video pretending to be a former mercenary also, and validating Jason Blaha's story of being a mercenary. He hid his face using the swirl effect. People actually unswirled that effect and revealed his identity, and found him on Jason Blaha's Facebook friends. And also some of the story there was actually lifted from movies. He claimed that Hemingway was Jason Blaha's nickname because he actually quoted Hemingway on one of his missions. So that whole story was lifted from the movie Predators, in which the hero actually quoted Hemingway in exactly the same way. So it was obviously lifted from that movie. And now it became obvious that a lot of Jason Blaha's stories in the past were actually lifted from all kinds of movies and comic books. In one video he told a story about a guy he knew who was telling him about men of authority. That guy was supposedly an officer in Vietnam, and his commanding officer gave him a stupid order that they must storm some hill, and that guy Blaha supposedly knew, told him it's a bad idea, all these men will die, but the commander told him to do it anyway. When that commanding officer went to take a shit, he rolled a grenade under his door and basically killed him to save his unit. But now someone found out that that was actually taken from a comic book called Punisher Born, and that's really a pattern of many of the stuff Jason claims. A lot of it is taken from all kinds of movies or comic books and stories he heard elsewhere, and he retells it as his own stories. Just like with his fitness advice, just like he stole the 5x5 program and called it his own, and people now think that he invented it. It was actually around for decades before that. And I will show you another example. This is a comment he made a month ago, and he says, "I puked my guts up the first time I killed someone." Someone found out that it's actually a line from a book. It's from a book called 1 Second After, and it's the exact same line. As you see, puked my guts out the first time I killed a man. So everything he says is lies or fiction from movies. But it seems that he just can't help himself, making those crazy, bizarre claims about himself. This is a comment from yesterday. Someone asked him if he's related to the astronaut John Blaha. And Jason immediately claimed that he is his father's cousin. So I looked back at some of the posts which Jason wrote on some forum years ago before he was on YouTube. He was writing on a forum, and Jason was actually writing there under the name of Dark Eternal. And he was using his actual picture and was giving out his actual date of birth. People were congratulating him on his birthday. And he was also telling stuff about himself, so he was obviously writing as himself, talking about his own life, the same kind of stuff which he later talked about in his videos. So in one of those posts he actually wrote that he has an astronaut relative. I'm sure people will dig into it to try to check out if it's actually true or not. Jason often likes to brag about his family. He says that his father was a Green Beret in Vietnam in Special Forces and a multimillionaire, and he says that his grandfather won the Second World War. He just made a video recently basically praising the nuclear attack on Japan, saying it was the right thing to do, and implied that that's what we should do now to Muslims. Just like in another older video he said we should bomb Mecca, even though Mecca is in Saudi Arabia, which is an ally of the United States. But he actually suggested bombing it, and said we should nuke the entire Middle East, which by the way is just such an absurd claim. Jason, do you realize that nuking such a large part of the earth with so many nukes, it would have very bad side effects for the environment, for the whole planet? You are not just endorsing genocide basically, but you are actually suggesting to pollute the whole planet and cause mutation and sickness to all of humanity, just because a small percentage of Muslims are involved in terror attacks. So anyway, he was praising the nuclear bombing of Japan, and said that his grandfather was involved, and said that his grandfather won the war. So he always loves to mention his family members. So it's impossible to know if it's true or not, if his uncle was actually an astronaut. But what I do know is that he deleted that comment shortly after. So maybe he's worried that people will find out that he's not actually related and that he lied again. So anyway, if you read all these posts by him from his Dark Eternal days, you'll see some really truly bizarre stuff. By the way, when all of this was exposed, Jason made a video in which he claimed that he was a paid fiction writer on the internet and that he wrote all that stuff just to promote some books. But if you read all these posts, you'll never see any actual promotion of any book. Where do you see him mentioning any book or anything like that? So his claim doesn't actually make sense. What book was he promoting by writing all that nonsense? And why was he using his actual picture and his actual date of birth and all kinds of details about himself? He said he was sexually molested as a child by his family. He said that the family on his father's side were pedophiles and so on. This is all his own claims. I'm not defaming him. I'm simply reading stuff which he wrote in the public domain. He claims he cannot talk about all that stuff because he signed a deal with the book company which he was promoting, so he cannot talk about all the stuff he wrote there. But anyone who looks at it can see that he never promoted any actual book. So what book company was he working for? It doesn't make sense. By the way, as you see, he was actually banned from that forum. So if he was working for that forum to promote books, how come they banned him for it? So his claim doesn't make any sense. So I will continue to investigate some of these claims and will report about it once I have some answers. So that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time.